I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear the thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Exactly 2 weeks after Barry's previous interview on June 3rd, Barry gave his 6th interview. There's not much to report about that, it is quite short, but Barry does attempt to cast shade on another quote-unquote suspect. Barry seems to suggest that Suzanne was somehow on drugs and thus involved with shady drug dealers. And then, of course, that changes. 2 weeks go by and then Barry kind of says something very different. Just over a week after that, Barry gave his 7th interview in 6 weeks. This time, Barry implied Suzanne's siblings may have been up to no good. For example, he apparently referred to Melinda as wicked and suggested David was smart enough to do something like this. Apparently no reference to Andy. Interestingly, in order to rationalize his accusations against Suzanne's siblings, Barry said, without the faintest hint of irony, sometimes when people are guilty, then they point the finger because of their guilt. Barry also said he never looked at Suzanne's phone. Now, I'm not sure whether her notes concur on that score, as well as making this big statement. He said, I guarantee you that the tech from my truck and my phone will exactly match my interviews because I know for a fact what I've done. Now, that statement you really want to go through and read over and over and over again as we go through these other statements. So he's absolutely sure what he was doing and apparently where he was. And so let's check that. But I mean, before we even do that, what do you think? Is the telemetry a match with Barry's version of events? Is the hotel CCTV a match with Barry's story? But in terms of his truck, does his truck wake up at the same time he says he did? What about his phone? Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. By the way, I must apologize. I have a bit of a sore throat, so if I sound kind of nasally and, kind of phlegmy, I'm really not feeling too well. If the video is not edited terribly well as well, it's kind of because of that. I'm really not feeling very well, so we'll see how things go. If you're enjoying this episode, please like, share, leave a comment. Bear in mind, I've also put up some merch, TCRS hats. Check them out if you haven't already. I've put some links to that on Twitter and also in the community tab on this channel. You can also hit the thanks button and let's get started. So let's deal with that interview on June 25th. You had CBI agents Cahill and Derek Graham interviewing Barry. This would be their penultimate interview. The interview was audio recorded, and so basically he talks about Suzanne having an affair, but implicates someone that Suzanne wasn't having an affair with, Kurt Sigler. And I think we're going to, and this is sort of where he talks about also the Morphemans being involved in marijuana, and maybe they were responsible for her disappearance. So, as I say, there's not too much substance in the 6th and 7th interview. So let's move on to Barry's 8th and final interview to law enforcement 2 weeks later on July 8th. This is really a fascinating interview. In this interview, Barry provided additional detail around so much that we want to know about, so much where there's so much inconsistency and uncertainty. And so once again, he provides more detail, but it only raises more questions. He's asked about what he did at the hotel. He's asked about McDonald's. He's asked about his movements on Saturday as well as Saturday night. Now, bear in mind, Barry's saying, I guarantee you that my tech from my truck and my phone will exact match my interviews because I know for a fact what I've done, right? And so since Barry's absolutely certain now what he did, let's hear it. Let's get a sense of that in this interview. So I'm going to go through it. Barry interviewed July 8th. Regarding the worst text Barry deleted, so I think he was asked, what is the worst text you got that you deleted? Barry said, if I remember right, it was Friday morning. I was working and she was in one of her moods. Barry stated regarding Sunday, I went in, got the hotel room, relaxed for a bit, went to the job site and seen it. Then added, pulled several blocks off and left it. So do you notice he acknowledges here that he relaxed for a little bit? And I believe that that is true. I believe that he spent a fair amount of time in the hotel room sleeping. In other words, he goes to the work site because he's got this big job, right? He gets up early, goes to the hotel and relaxes, sleeps. Well, I'm presuming he slept. Barry stated, and that's, meaning McDonald's, the only place that I remember going. Well, now bear in mind he also went to the men's warehouse. I think he went to, there were a couple of other stops as well. Anyway, he says, I did nothing else besides went to the job site and went to the hotel. Now, we are going to deal with when he was later on, I think he was asked, did you turn left or right when you
300 feet,
came out of Puma Path?
Right.
And you remember he said he saw a deer and he sort of followed that. Well, then he did do something else besides going to the job site. Anyway, regarding Saturday, Barry said, we sat out in the sun. She was sunning and wanted me to sit out with her. I know we went to Foose's. And I can't remember exactly if it was Saturday, but I'm thinking it was Saturday. We took a walk up around Foose's and came back and she read. I tinkered around outside and did things outside until supper and grilled steaks. Now, can you see here he says, I can't remember exactly if it was Saturday in terms of his movements. That's the very last day that he spent with his wife, and he can't really remember it. And he said previously, I know for a fact what I've done. I'm so certain of my movements. I know, I can guarantee you that my tech from my truck and my phone will exact match my interviews. So that's the first instance where, when it comes to something quite sticky, where were you on Saturday? He says he can't remember exactly. Then he says, if I went to DSI, it wasn't in the afternoon, and I could have run back to Crib and had him put the blade on. So that's a reference to the Bobcat, that a new blade was put on the Bobcat that day of all days. But he said, I know I made steaks on the grill. Interestingly, Chris Watt said something similar, that he barbecued sort of the night before. And anyway, he says, that's one thing that I know I did. Now, there is some evidence that a fire was made in the hearth and strange objects were placed in the fire. So I think there was some fire starting and fire making. Anyway, Barry stated, we had a lot of good time together that week. Regarding the argument Friday morning, Barry stated, to be honest with you, I can't even remember what it was about. So now it's kind of their last argument they've ever had. And you'd imagine if he really loved his wife, that maybe he'd have feelings of guilt or regret, that at the very end of their experience together, there's this not terribly good experience with one another. But now he says, I can't remember what that was about. Again, he says, remember what he said, I guarantee you that my tech from my truck and my phone will exactly match my interviews because I know for a fact what I've done. But then when he's asked about an argument, he can't remember. And that brings us to this whole interesting thing of dinner for one. Was Barry alone on May 9th? did he make dinner for himself, or was it really this romantic get-together with his wife? The alcohol got worse and worse and worse those last 3 months, and she was drinking every single day. And I think that's got to be juxtaposed to where he says, I think that she was improving. Or what does Sheila say, about that? Is there any proof that she was drinking? Anyway, Barry stated, I just can't remember any specifics. To be honest, I just can't remember us talking on the phone. So can you see, he's very certain sometimes on certain things and then just uncertain on others. Barry said, that weekend, nothing out of the ordinary happened. It seemed normal and perfect. Barry stated that with the girls gone, Suzanne's phone would have been on all night Saturday. Barry stated, I think there was some trash in my truck, wrappers, bottles and junk that accumulated over the work week. He said that he threw the trash in a garbage can and went to the gas station and got a granola bar. Barry stated, I'm pretty sure when that's Jeanne, called, I was right there at the wall. I'm pretty sure when Jean Ritter called, I was right there at the wall, right? Meaning he was at the work site. Adding that he loaded up his tools, took them directly to the hotel, told the lady working at the hotel lobby that he had an emergency and asked if he could leave the tools in the lobby. Just kind of saying that he was at the work site, got this call, rushed back to the hotel, left the tools at the hotel, and then went home. Is that true? Is that confirmed by the CCTV? When asked if he threw anything away at the hotel, Barry replied, not that I recall. Can you see this uncertainty creeping in here? I mean, I could have, but not that I recall. So he's asked, did you throw anything away at the hotel? I could have, but I just don't remember. When asked to be specific, he replied, again, not that I recall. It's the third time. Barry was asked twice if he took anything into the hotel room besides his backpack, and he replied that he did not. Now, do you remember the other people staying in his room could recall what they found thrown away. One of them thought it was an insurance document. Barry stated, I don't know, when asked by CBI when was the last time Suzanne talked about leaving him. When asked if it was recent, he said, no, I don't ever recall her saying she's going to leave me. What do you think about that statement? Because that's quite a strong statement. I don't ever recall her saying she's going to leave me. And do you know that I'm done text was sent on May 6th, essentially 3 days before she disappeared. Agents asked Barry if Suzanne ever told him she was done, and Barry said, she's never said that. She loves her family too much. Barry stated, we grilled a steak, split it. Barry said, we had 2 different plates that night. This statement was refuted by Agent Graham, who explained that it appeared only 1 plate was recovered from among the items in the dishwasher. Interesting. Barry replied that he must have hand-washed his own plate. What do you think about that? Barry stated, because she started drinking, in response to the statement by CBI that he and Suzanne's behavior got worse the minute the girls left on the trip, and she was drinking the whole time. Barry stated after multiple assertions that he did not recall this is so interesting, what junk he threw away, that he might have thrown away an old pair of boots that he had in the back of his truck. After CBI told him multiple times that he threw away more than boots, he stated, if there's clothes in my truck, there was probably old clothes I threw away. That is the first time he's ever admitted that. Barry was told by CBI that he showered at the house before leaving and showered at the hotel when he arrived. He replied, showers relax me. He also said, I change shirts all the time, when told by CBI that he changed shirts twice after getting to the hotel. In the way I've looked at it, it looks like he may have changed shirts even more than that. When asked why, he stated, I don't even recall changing shirts that day. So much for that incredible memory. When confronted by CBI agents that the video footage from the hotel contradicted Barry's statements, that he was at Barry had said he was at the wall of the job site when Jean Ritter called, Barry did not refute the evidence. Now that's quite interesting. Sometimes law enforcement can't prove something. I mean, the CCTV seems to show that he was in the hotel, but of course you can't tell for sure. So Barry not saying, well, I went out the back way, or I went to the swimming pool and then I went out that way, or something like that. I went out an unusual entrance, or I called a taxi, or whatever it is. The fact that he doesn't doesn't challenge that, means that he basically accepts it. The property of 19057 Path, not including the house, was searched following this interview, pursuant to the issuance of a search warrant for the remains of Suzanne. Results were negative. So that is where we kind of going to leave it. It's at this point that the CBI hand over the case to FBI agents Grussing and Harris, and we'll resume with interview 9 on page 59 of the affidavit in the next episode. This is TCRS reporting from Midtown Manhattan in New York. I'll hopefully be back providing additional analysis from Long Island the next time you see me. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.